That's like the one piece of advice that I would give to baby business owner Johanna is like, price the classes at something that is going to allow you to pay yourself a fitting salary.
You're listening to The Aerial Hour, episode number 11. The Aerial Hour is a show for aerial entrepreneurs and enthusiasts to come together, share ideas, and continue to grow our ever-evolving community. Hello, friends. Thanks for joining me for another episode of The Aerial Hour. I really appreciate all your patience as I've been adjusting to life on the road and getting this podcast out there. And I'm really, really excited with everything I have planned for 2020 to make this even better than it already is. So thanks for sticking with me as I'm building. Currently, I am in the Ocala National Forest, which is in Florida, and we are inching our way out slowly but surely to get out of the state. And we are headed over to New Orleans for Mr. Pole Dance America, which again is January 24th. If you want more info, head over to that Instagram. I will link to it in the show notes. In today's episode, I interview Johanna from Happy Kiss Pole Fitness over in Gainesville, which I'm actually kind of near right now. This is, again, another one of the banked episodes that I have. So I believe we recorded this in early July of 2019. And Johanna, I believe, was the first studio that I reached out to outside of my little Tampa St. Pete bubble, although it wasn't totally a far stretch because I had a connection to the studio. Marina, who is one of Johanna's instructors, was a friend of mine. And it's actually kind of a funny story of how Marina and I connected. If you're in Florida, then you probably have seen Marina at shows. And if not, I will link to her Instagram in the show notes because you need to see her dance. She's amazing. And aside from just being a great dancer, she's just this incredible human being. Marina at one point lived in Tampa and was going to Buttercup for classes at the same time I was. We also had a bunch of mutual friends because, again, St. Pete and Tampa aren't very far from each other. People kept trying to connect us. They'd be like, you pole dance, she pole dances, you guys have to hang out, because that's what, people do. And we just kept missing each other. So I think we became friends on Facebook, but again, I think we had seen each other at Buttercup, but we really didn't know each other. And then Bendy Kate decided to tour America, and she was going to be coming to Florida. And I was like, oh my God, I am the least bendy person ever, but I have to go to Bendy Kate's workshop. So I posted that I was going to go to this workshop and wondered if anybody wanted to come with me. And Marina commented that she was game. And without knowing each other, we decided to take this trip to Jacksonville, which is like 4 hours away, stay with each other, and go to workshops. And it was such a blast. And when I was formulating the idea for this show, Marina was actually the very first person outside of my two besties in the pole community that I shared this idea with. And immediately after being like, oh, I love this idea, she was like, you have to interview Johanna. She has so much knowledge about creating a business and a plan and really delivering on it, and you have to talk to her. So I made a mental note, and God, that was like probably July of 2018, because that was at a Buttercup performance. I think that we talked about it, and it took me a whole year to be able to actually reach out and make that interview happen. So enough about that story. I just think it's really funny that, the way that Aerial brings us together, having never met somebody, we decided to just jump in a car and spend, 4 hours there, 4 hours back, and a whole night together. And I was like worried that we would have nothing to talk about, but I think we had more than enough. We didn't stop talking. But again, enough about that. Back to the show. So now you'll finally get to hear this interview that I recorded forever ago. Upon meeting Johanna, I instantly felt welcomed. Her studio just has that friendly vibe that makes you feel at home. And of course, before recording, I had the opportunity to take a class with Johanna, and I believe it was a floor play class. What I remember most was her freestyle and her lines, of course, being beautiful, but her cues, helped me through my movement and helped me extend so much. And then to find out she doesn't even have like a dance background, she's a really, really incredible person. In this episode, we talk about everything in building her business, choosing lighting, scheduling, building her staff and shows, freestyle, and everything else in between. If you want to know more about this particular episode, head over to theaerialhour.com and check out the show notes. If you love the show and you really want to show us your support, please write us a review on Apple Podcast or any of the other podcast platforms we're listed on. And tell your friends. This really helps other people find us easily as it ranks us higher in the podcast platforms. And it really just makes my day when I pop on my little hosting service and see a new review come up. I think I've talked enough. This isn't what you come here for, so I'm going to play the episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Aerial Hour. Today I am joined by Johanna of Happy Kiss Studio, and we are going to talk about all things aerial. Johanna, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we are sitting in your studio space, which is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you so much.
How did you find this space?
So lots of driving around Gainesville in search of a place with tall ceilings and an open space, which was a little bit of a challenge. The other challenge was finding a location that was zoned for a dance studio.
Oh, okay.
Because I found a couple of locations and then they were not zoned for being able to open up a dance studio. So I ended up using a broker. Her name is Mary Jane Brunel. She's awesome. And she showed me the space next door, which is a carpet place, and they have their drop ceilings taken out. And when I went into their space, I just already saw the pole studio. The ceilings are 13 feet tall, and I was like, this is it. The other thing that I did is when we first started searching for a space for the business, I tended to tell people where I was looking and then noticing that those places were falling through. So I have a little bit of superstition about telling people something that I'm working on right away. And this was the first space that we didn't tell anybody that we were looking at, and we landed it. And yeah, it was great to find this space.
Yeah.
It was like a little secret, and then only telling people once the paperwork is signed.
Yeah.
is my thing.
I do that too.
Yeah.
So when you found this space, was it pretty blank space? Did you have to do a lot of changes to make it more pole studio?
I lucked out. I just had to remove the drop ceiling. Just had to. The drop ceiling was kind of a big job, but basically remove the drop ceiling, move an AC unit out of the ceiling, and the space itself, we didn't have to knock down any walls. It just had a lot of really random built-in furniture on the walls that we had to remove, and they were
built-in furniture. Okay.
Yeah, or built-in shelves, and they were put in with the most dramatic, exaggerated nails that were 1/4 inch thick. It's just things that you wouldn't need to install something, as long as you know where studs are. So it was just more than anything sanding, spackle, and sand and spackle and sand and spackle.
Right.
And it felt like most of the job was just sand and spackle. Finally, once we were done with spackle, or once I was just tired of sanding and spackling, we just threw paint on and installed the floors. And that was pretty much it. I really lucked out finding the space, and also finding a friend to do the AC for me. Saved a ton of money. Yeah, just really lucked out with low cost to get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before this space, you were teaching in your home, right?
Yeah.
So at what point did you decide to transition to commercial space?
So the home studio was 2 poles. It was 200 square feet and 3 student max. So anytime we had a full class, even though it was only 3 students, it felt really full because of the amount of space that we had to work on. And like I trained my students to do spins facing the same way so that nobody would kick each other or a wall while we were in it. But I just had consistently waitlisted classes week after week after week. I did a Groupon to pull people in at first at that home studio, and then it just felt like it needed to grow at that point, and that's when I decided to do that transition.
How long did it take you from deciding to make a commercial space to actually opening the space?
I would say between like 4 and 6 months.
Okay.
Getting into this space, like from the moment we signed the lease, I want to say it was like 2 to 3 months, and then a couple of months of searching before then. So thankfully not a ton of time. And it also sort of worked out with the timeline where we also moved out of the house that we were currently in.
Okay.
So that lease ended and then this lease began pretty much at the same time. Yeah.
And when you decided to rent the space and you found the commercial space for a dance studio, did you tell the landlord that it was for a pole studio?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's one of the things that, you know, they'll definitely ask you like what kind of business it's going to be. And the main concern they had was get liability insurance.
Okay. Yeah.
But other than that, they didn't seem to bat an eye at the fact that it was going to be a pole studio. I have had funny things happen. Like when I first got the business license to teach at home and the inspector came in to check the space out, they said that the only thing that they asked of me is that nobody would get naked in the space because in Gainesville, there is a law, like there's no strip clubs in Gainesville because you're not legally allowed to get down further than pasties and a thong.
Okay.
And I said, of course not. I don't really want naked people in my pole dance studio. It's just like really funny, like people are accepting, but you know, they kind of show you what they're comfortable with accepting.
Their boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. But overall, Gainesville's been pretty accepting.
That's great.
Of the business. Yeah.
How did you name your studio?
That's one of my favorite stories because it's just really random. I was in bed. I couldn't figure it out for the life of me. I kept going back and forth with really terrible names. That's actually one of the biggest struggles I have. I don't have a stage name because I've never been able to come up with something that feels right, at least to keep for long term. Plenty of names that make no sense or make sense for like a month, and then it's like, okay, this is silly. But Happy Kiss is something that I think she was 5 or 6 at the time, my niece ended up writing out on a card for me as a birthday card. So all the way in the back of the card, all in lowercase, it said Happy Kiss. And then it was like, wait a minute, this is actually a great name for a business, and specifically pole. Happy because that's sort of what I want the studio to represent, something that is welcoming, something that is your happy place. And then Kiss, which brings in the little bit more sensual side of it without, screaming raunchiness and sex.
Yeah.
So yeah, Happy Kiss.
I really like the name, and I think it's really fitting to,
Thank
especially
you.
Hearing how you want it to feel. I think you definitely execute that. When I walked in, yeah. So I just took a class with Johanna. Great class. But when I walked in, I immediately felt very welcome. I love the lighting.
Thank you.
The lighting is amazing. We spoke a little bit about this before, but it's very thoughtful. And you talked about how important lighting was to you. Why is it so important to you?
So I come from an art background, and anytime I go into space and I experience it, it's really visual for me. Lighting is really important just in terms of the feel of it. Even when I picked out the paint for the studio, I went with this light cool gray because I knew eventually I wanted to get really nice LED lights to put in here, and they would absorb whatever color lights I put on. I didn't want to have that like deep red or deep purple colored studio, because then that would constantly be the color of the studio.
Right.
So the gray allows it to shift. And so if the class is feeling a little bit sexier, it can be like a deep red. And if the class is feeling a little bit happier, the lights can be shifting. Or we had like these watery lights on today. So it just kind of brings this like liquidy feel, which I think is great for floor play, which we just did. So and then the house lights are these string lights that are just really warm LED string lights. I kind of want it to feel a little bit like going into a cabin without all the dead animal heads on the wall. So it's like cozy and comfortable.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No dead animals.
No dead animals.
Stilettos, definitely.
Stilettos everywhere.
Right.
Lots of wood. Yeah. So I just wanted like a nice warm feel for everybody when they came in.
I love how you mentioned picking a paint color that could pick up different colors of lights.
Exactly.
I saw you changing the colors during the class and started out one color, and by the end of class it was a totally different color, which is so cool.
Yeah.
That's not something that I would think about when...
Now you might.
You're right. Now I will. But I don't think that's something that I would necessarily consider.
Right.
I might just think like, oh, I'm going to have all these lights, but not really think like the walls need to reflect the lighting.
Exactly. I mean, there's a reason it's called mood lighting. It's because it, puts you in the mood, and people always hear mood lighting and they think, ooh, sexy. But it doesn't, have to just represent that one thing.
Right. It can be happy. It can be, dark and stormy. It can be all these different emotions. And I think, especially with Ariel, it's such a visual thing that creating that vibe kind of invokes more creativity.
Exactly.
I really appreciate that. What struggles did you face in the first year of running your business?
A little bit of everything. So I didn't have a mentor when I first started, and I always go back and think, like, if I could just give baby business owner Johanna a hand, like I would give her all these little tips, but I can't go back there anymore. I think the biggest thing that I struggled with is knowing my worth. And that reflected in how I priced the classes. So I had the studio running for, I would say, like 2.5 years, and I wasn't paying myself a salary at that point. The studio was just paying for itself to keep running. And that's like the one piece of advice that I would give to baby Johanna, baby business owner Johanna, is like, price the classes at something that is going to allow you to pay yourself a fitting salary. So now I have a salary, but it's still small and still working up to like something where I feel more comfortable at. But it's still a struggle, reminding yourself like you're worth, getting paid something that allows you to live in a comfortable place and have health insurance and have like a sense of comfort. It's not just like for everybody else.
And I think it can very easily become that, especially this. I think as a studio owner and an instructor, you're already giving so much to, I would imagine, pricing it too low, feeling like, okay, what am I doing this for? Like you get so much out of it, watching people grow and all that, but you also have to be able to support yourself.
Exactly. It's really easy to fall into the trap of being burnt out from it when you don't give enough back to yourself. And I'm in a couple of studio owner groups on Facebook, and every now and then that question will come up. And that's like the first thing I want to help people with is, give yourself what you're worth. If you continue to not pay yourself, you're doing two things. You're saying that you're not worthy of, having that comfort, sense of security, and paying yourself for a great service that you're providing. And two, which I think is even more important, is that you're telling everybody else in the aerial community that pole is cheap, anybody could get it. It's not a big deal. So that when somebody is a student at a studio that is really inexpensive and then they go to an expensive, quote unquote, expensive studio, they'll say, oh my God, your prices are so high. And I've had that email and phone call before, and I have to tell people, well, we're providing a service. Our class sizes are small. You know, we're pricing them at the point where I can pay myself, my instructors, and my overhead costs. If I did it at the cost you want it at, I wouldn't be able to run this place anymore.
So when you first started figuring out your price, is that how you figured it out? How much you needed to make, how much you needed to be able to pay instructors?
Exactly.
And then your overhead.
Exactly.
Okay. And then how do you figure out how many classes you're going to teach during the week?
Right now, I think we have like 20 classes running every week. I actually have.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I think it's about 20.
That's great.
I have a fantastic friend. Her name is Laura Noyes, and she has worked in the health industry for a really long time and has worked for gyms and has dealt with the mind-body system. And she was the one that really helped me restructure my pricing.
Okay.
And she's done that math before where, you know, she prices it all out. With the how many classes per week, it's partly trying to keep it so that there's enough things running, but also not have so many classes available that then they can't fill themselves up. And then I have a bunch of classes at minimum. So yeah, it's kind of finding a balance. And with Gainesville being the community that it is, where it changes semester by semester, because everything sort of stems from the university. It changes a lot. Like we used to have classes on Saturday, now I don't. Now it's just Sunday. There's something about Saturday where people will sign up and then go party on Friday night, and then they're too hungover and they cancel like the next day. So, but for some reason Sunday isn't that. So
I think Sunday is like self-care day. So this is like perfect for self-care day. That's great. So you have now been in business for 5 years, right? When was your 5-year anniversary?
5 years was in March of this year. It was perfect because it went along with our showdown, which is our biggest showcase every year. So it's a really nice way to celebrate that 5 years. And it's a big milestone, and especially because of where I'm at now, which is a self-sustaining business with clients that are coming in all the time, where I don't feel like I have to, you know, make myself crazy trying to bring people in all the time, where I have like the greatest staff I've ever had. Not to say that I didn't have great staff before, but just in terms of like me not working all the time. Yeah, so it's like 5 years, but it's also like 5 years and like happy 5-year and comfortable 5-year landing. So it's been a good way to celebrate that.
I love that, celebrating with a huge show. That's so much fun. A lot of work, I'm sure, but a lot of fun, and getting to see everybody perform, and you're like, it's all, this is what it was for.
It all happened somehow.
You mentioned the university, so we're in Gainesville, Florida right now. And literally right down the street, it feels like, from the University of Florida. So are you getting students from the school?
Many students. For the most part, it tends to be the graduate, master's, PhD programs. I get some undergrad students in, but I feel like it's a little harder for them to afford the classes, where people that are in their master's and PhD programs, not only can they afford it a little bit more, but they're just in a place in their life where they feel a little bit more comfortable putting themselves in an environment that is on a more sexual spectrum. And being able to dance in it and being able to make themselves more vulnerable. Where it's funny because when I first started, I feel like I had a lot more undergrad, and then it just keeps shifting. And that could have been like the price change or
your own evolution.
Exactly. So it changes a little bit every year. But the majority of my students are also UF students. But then there's also a big chunk of people that just live and work in Gainesville.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. Do you ever like cater your classes towards, do you find like these type of students, like this type of class, and maybe cater towards them, or?
Absolutely. So with our class sizes being pretty small, the max is 9 for our level classes and 8 for choreography classes. Not just me, but the other instructors themselves will look at that class roster and know, like, I know the challenge that I could give this student. I know the thing that this student is going to love because they're coming to it. So that part I really love because we get to cater a lot to what we know they're going to like and enjoy. Yeah. And it makes it easier to teach too, so that, you know, if you don't look at the class roster and then the students just show up and you're like, oh no, I just came up with a combo, but I know they're definitely not going to be able to do it. And then they're going to be in the struggle bus and have a terrible time.
And that's not what this whole thing is about.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love the thoughtfulness. So being in the business for 5 years, have you seen big changes in the style of classes that are popular?
So in the beginning, there tended to be a lot more students interested in the choreography side of things. This past year, a lot of students are really just loving the level classes, especially level 1, and we have a lot in level 2. And also when we first started, for some reason, we just had a big demographic of students that were coming in with other fitness backgrounds. So we had a ton of people packed into our high level classes, and now that's one of the classes that doesn't get as many students as it used to. So it's really interesting to see that shift, and I think part of it happened with way in the beginning we didn't have the same level evaluations we have now. So anybody that wants to move up to a level has to go through a checklist of moves, and I find that a lot of students feel nervous about going through the checklist, and then as soon as I tell them, well, we'll just do half and then see how you feel, and then we'll do half the other day. And usually what ends up happening is we run through that entire list and they're like, oh, okay, it's fine. I'm like, I know, because I wouldn't make you do this unless I thought you were ready. So so it shifts a lot every time, and we're doing our best to push more people into the upper level classes. And then going back to the whole Gainesville thing, it's a huge turnaround of students, because every single semester somebody leaves. And that's been one of the hardest things about filling up the upper level classes, is that all those students we worked on for the past 2, 3, 4 years now are graduated and are moving somewhere else.
So hard.
It is hard.
I imagine. I mean, I know how I feel about my students. And like,
that's probably the worst part of it. And I do find myself trying to like not emotionally attach myself to each and every single student. And even though I love them, the first like 2 or 3 years of having the business and that happening was completely devastating and heartbreaking.
So your first student.
So my first student, her name is Varian. It was really heartbreaking because I had her as my very first student when I just was teaching out of my house, and then she moved to North Carolina. And then a year later, she came back. But when it first happened and she did that move, I think I was like 3 or maybe 3.5 years into the business. And that was such like a raw, deep cut. I remember coming into the studio and having to dance it out, because it's like every single semester, somebody that I've seen through their whole journey and just their life experiences and all the triumphs of studying for classes, and then all of a sudden gone. So hard. It was a roller coaster, but it's really nice to have her back.
And I imagine like as you go through that with people, you kind of expect it a little bit, and so you're able to prepare yourself a little. But I imagine it's really cool to get people in this stage of their life where they're probably open, like you were saying, to exploring, and you're getting to aid them and becoming themselves.
They're open to new experiences. They're open to trying something out and just giving a little bit to themselves, but not wanting to get stuck in the rut of the treadmill on the gym.
Right. We talked a little bit about your instructors.
Yes.
How many instructors do you currently have?
Besides myself, I have 4 instructors. That's Becky, Marina, Renee, and Shannon. They're all super fantastic. I feel like I just win the lottery every single time. The way that I go about getting new instructors is we have teacher auditions anytime I'm running low on instructors, and they've tended to be in the summertime, and I think it's because of that, Gainesville transitional thing where people will leave by the end of summer, so I'll need to have a teacher audition. With this last one, I got 3 new instructors. So I've had Marina for, I think her 2-year anniversary is coming up now. And then Shannon, Renee, and Becky, I all hired last year, but more than that many auditioned. And it was really hard to pick and choose.
What do you look for when you're hiring instructors?
So the main thing is attitude.
Yeah.
Like you said, when you came into the studio, it felt really welcoming. So it's not just lighting or paint colors or studio decor. I need my instructors to just turn it on.
Yeah.
As soon as they come in, it doesn't matter if you had a shitty day, if you had a fight with your boyfriend or husband. It doesn't matter if whatever it is that is bugging you can't be bugging you at that moment.
Right.
You just have to turn on your teacher face. You have to welcome every student positively and warmly. And besides that, when you're teaching, be really excited to teach and open to any sort of question. So if I get any sort of hint of somebody that isn't really open to that, it doesn't mean that they're a bad instructor, but it means that they might just not fit with our team.
Right.
And I've had fantastic instructors and pole stars that I wouldn't necessarily want to go out to lunch with them.
Right.
But they're a fantastic instructor.
Yeah.
But at Happy Kiss, that sort of like welcoming vibe has to be really important.
With the current instructors, how do you have them teach classes? Do you kind of just let them choose the type of classes that they want to teach, or do you kind of give them classes? How does that work?
So we meet on a monthly basis.
Nice.
Sometimes it's really just us talking and getting nothing done.
Right.
But the times we meet and I have coffee, everything gets done. I'm not a coffee drinker, so just like 1 cup of coffee and I'll be like on for the next 5 hours and just like running crazily. Yeah, so we meet once a month. Sometimes those meetings are at the studio and we're working on combos that we're going to work on for the next month, or sometimes we meet outside of the studio and I have like breakfast and just talk things out. And I've started to integrate this year trainings that we have with other things. So I think it was back in like February or March where I had them train with one of the aerial instructors here in town, and they took a lyric class, which is something we don't currently offer at the studio. And it's just to kind of get them out of the same, like only teaching pole, only taking pole classes.
Right.
So yeah, we do those trainings on a monthly basis. And then once a year, I tend to go all out and we'll do a little bit more intensive training.
Nice.
And it's sort of just like touching base on all the moves that we currently teach in our curriculum and bringing in some of the knowledge that I got from expert trainings. And we'll be here 1 or 2 days from 9 to 5, like covering everything. And it goes into not just moves, but how to interact with clients, how to interact with other instructors. That same vibe that I try to keep in the studio gets touched on a lot. And then as far as what classes they teach, I tend to see the strengths that they have and I'll put them in for that. Right now, the goal is to have each instructor teaching 1 to 2 days max. So they'll usually teach 2 to 3 classes all in one day so that they don't have to come in multiple times a week to get their hours or mostly just coming in once a week and getting it all done so they're not burning themselves out.
Right.
One thing that we added this summer, which has been incredibly helpful, is that we all started feeling the burnout of teaching the exact same classes over and over again. And we did summer like switcheroo.
Nice.
So I taught Marina's classes on Monday and Marina taught my classes, and Becky started teaching all of the Thursday classes and Renee started teaching all of the Friday classes.
I love that.
And it's been such a refresher.
Yeah.
Not only for the instructors, but I've had students say like, wow, I was like sore in places I haven't been sore before,
right.
Just because even though they were taking the same class,
right.
a different instructor was teaching it.
That seems like a very easy way to switch things
Super
up.
easy. Yeah. And it just makes it so that it's once again trying to not get into that burnout.
Yeah,
so it's something we're definitely
fresh.
gonna include in the future.
That's really, really great. We talked a little, you have a work study program.
I do.
That's really interesting. So can you tell me a little bit about what the program is?
So I just started that last summer, and basically I had this goal in my mind where I just wanted to give myself a little bit more freedom. So one of the things that I was doing all the time before the work studies is coming into the studio every single day before classes, making sure the AC is turned on, making sure all the towels are out, making sure there's enough toilet paper, making sure there's enough paper towels, making sure the floors are swept, setting up all the class stuff, counting the cash register. So there's just like a ton of little tasks that have to be done on a daily basis that I felt if I could just get someone to help me with this, it would make my life so much easier. And what I did was hire 2 current students from the studio, and basically I give them classes in exchange for their time. They work 10 to maximum 15 hours a week. And then all those little tasks that were, piling up in my head all of a sudden got relieved. And then I had space in my head to think about other things, to spend more time focusing on putting shows together, to spend more time focusing on the instructors and what are they getting out of the studio, and more training for myself, and even just like being able to spend 20 extra minutes at home and not having to rush and shovel food into my mouth right before coming into the studio has been really fantastic. They also get to learn a little bit about the business side of things. So I've had somebody that's in law school doing it, and somebody that works with animals. And I currently have somebody that's an event planner working for me, and she's been a great asset. Yeah, so I feel like that's something that has been super helpful. Eventually, the studio will make enough money that I can hire, a manager. But at this point, I feel even if I had a manager, the work study program would still be beneficial, and the students love getting the free classes.
Yeah, it's beneficial all the way around. I know. Just as a student, I loved being here. I just loved to be at my studio.
Exactly.
And doing what you're allowing them to do is beneficial for everyone. You get more time to yourself and not so burnt out. They get to be a part of something bigger than them, and they get to take classes for free. I mean, that is so resourceful to say, like, I have this problem, how can I find the solution that not only benefits me but also benefits my students? Very, very interesting.
I think the hardest part of that is like being a control freak.
Which
I think a lot of business owners are. I think you just are in control of everything all the time. And just allowing somebody else to, take some of the responsibility, and no, everything doesn't have to be like 100% perfect the way you did it. And no, the towels don't have to be perfectly folded this way, but although they are really good at folding towels.
Shout out to the girls that fold the towels correctly.
Exactly. And all the things, and just the client interaction, just having somebody else be the face of the studio has been super helpful.
Right.
I feel like it's been an interesting time because there's people that don't actually know that I'm the studio owner now, because they just see the receptionist, and sometimes I'm just their instructor, and they're oh, she's the owner. I'm like, I love that. I love being in the shadows and not having to be the face of the studio. Yeah.
That's great. I love that it gives you a break. And you mentioned like being a control freak.
Yes.
Did it take you a little bit of time before you were like, I'm okay turning this over?
Yeah, that was it about a year ago. So it was around year 4.
Wow.
When it's like, maybe I need to just let somebody else deal with it. It's taken a long time for me to just let go of things and realize like it's not the most important thing in the world. There's so many more important things, the bigger picture stuff, that I could lose sight of if I'm just constantly worried about folding towels and doing laundry all the time.
Right.
Yeah, and it's been not just helpful for me, but also for the instructors themselves, because there have been times where I'll leave the instructors to basically carry the studio on their shoulders if I needed to run an errand or whatever it was. And then if the instructor has to teach and also assign people in and handle retail all at the same time, it's a lot. So I think they've really enjoyed getting some of their tasks taken off of them so that they can focus on what they're supposed to be doing, which is teaching.
That's smart.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit about your shows, so I want to talk to you about your shows.
Yeah.
When I was looking at your business page and your website, you do a lot of shows.
We do some,
Consistent. Consistently, you've done a handful of shows. So I don't think most people know like what goes into producing the type of shows that we produce. So tell me a little bit about that. How do you organize your shows?
Yeah, so we have about, I would say like 3 to 4 shows every year. I think in the beginning I used to have, I used to have more.
Wow.
And then I had to kind of pull back. It was like once every season, and then it's like, maybe not. So now it's closer to 3 shows, or I might be pushing towards 4 shows this year. Question mark. But basically, I just wanted to give students a chance to perform in front of an audience that they feel comfortable in, which is for the most part other students and friends and family.
Yeah.
Our studio can only hold so many people in it, so our shows at the studio are super intimate. It's fantastic. They sell out almost every single time we have them. And then as far as putting them together for the shows that I have in the studio, I'm a little bit more laid back about it.
Yeah.
But basically, I have a general setup. I let the students know these are the poles that you're going to be using. This is the way they're going to be set up, and just work your way around that. We have themes that we come up with for every show. When I say we, it's usually me and what I call the committee, which is the other instructors.
The committee.
The committee. And it's called the committee because we'll have a theme, and then we'll have students request the songs that they can use. And when I'm not sure about whether that song fits that theme, I always let them know, like, I'll have to talk to the committee and let you know.
The committee has denied your request.
Exactly. And for the most part, we don't.
Right. But I imagine it's fun to say that.
Like, I'm sorry, you have to pick a different song. But yeah, we did have, so there's 2 different kinds of shows that we do. The showcases are the shows that we have here at the studio, the more intimate student-based shows. And then we have the showdown every year, which used to be called the Happy Kiss Hole competition. But I wanted to make it a little bit less rigid, and into that where like I used to have a judging panel and they had to check off on all these moves that the students were doing. And then I kind of just wanted to make it more about the show.
Yeah.
So that's where the showdown kind of came in. That we have once every year, and we've been doing them at the High Dive the past 2 years, which is a fantastic venue here in Gainesville. The stage height is perfect for like close, intimate audience connection, but just also allowing anybody in the audience to see what's happening. We can set up poles all the way up to the ceiling, so no X stages, which is fantastic, and not having to worry about a truss system is also super fantastic. It's just a really nice, intimate, little bit grungy space, but grungy in like a good way. Like there's a bar right there, you can relax and see a great show. Those themes tend to be a little bit more specific. So the first year we did the showdown, it was legends, and we wanted it to be artists that you think of as legendary. So we had a couple of requests for pop stars that are really current, and it's like, they're not legends yet. They may be, but give
Slow
them
down with your Britney Spears.
Exactly.
Let's give it a couple
and
years.
I feel like Britney could have, made it too, or I think Britney might have made it, because it had to be, they've had a career for 2 decades or longer. They have multiple albums with multiple hits. So I feel like Britney could have made it in. But somebody like Ariana Grande wouldn't necessarily make it in, because she's still a baby in the music industry. I danced to Purple Rain.
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
So good.
There are so many great hits. People dance to Michael Jackson and Queen, and I'm forgetting a couple of the names of artists, but that one was really fun. And I feel like because we stuck so much to the theme, it made the show run super smooth. Yeah.
So how do you come up with your themes?
Sometimes it's just something that I have in my head. If I come up with a theme, it tends to be, I have a song that I have stuck in my head and I need to dance to it, so that's going to be the theme. And then I have to figure out what theme I could pick off of the song that I'm interested in. But a lot of times it's something that gets discussed in the monthly teacher meetings, where it's like, okay, we have the winter show coming up. What are we going to do with it? So
group effort.
A lot of group effort. And sometimes it's like, that one song is stuck in my head and I just really need to dance to it. And I know I can live in it for like 3 to 4 months and not get tired of it. What is the theme? That's
awesome.
Most of our shows are we're talking about them 3, 4, 5, 6 months out already.
That's awesome. You mentioned the High Dive. How did you find that specific venue?
So I had been to it before, just other related shows. They have a lot of burlesque shows there. And one of the burlesque artists here in Gainesville, her name is Sally B. Dash. She told me about the High Dive because I was looking for a space where I could consistently go to for shows, and it's just perfect because I can just set up the whole show and I just talk to the owner, Patrick, via email, and we figure out the dates and we figure out lighting and sound and everything that we need before we go. And they have the bar that's there that's included that I don't have to worry about. They have lighting that's there that's included that I don't have to worry about. Sound that's included that I don't have to worry about. They even have a dressing room.
Oh, wow.
So it's like I said, grungy, but in a good way.
I've seen videos from the space, and it looks like a really cool space. It has like the letters for High Dive.
High Dive in the background.
It seems like a very cool, intimate space. It's not huge, but big enough to
have like 2, I think maybe 300 might be the max in there.
That's so cool.
So that year that we did the Legends show was really cool. And then the 5-year anniversary showdown was this year. But so we had Alethea Austin in the Legends showdown, and that was sort of like, because she's a legend, it fit. And I thought, like, I can never make this happen, but I reached out anyways, and it did.
That's amazing.
And I was like, this is not happening. Like, literally one of those moments where you're pinching yourself. Like, it's Alethea Austin and she's there. And then this year we also got super lucky and we had Carmine Black come in and do the show. And it was just phenomenal to watch her dance in that space.
That's so amazing. So another thing that you do is you do a lot of trainings and workshops here. Can you tell me a little bit about why you do those here?
For me, like, I think in the beginning, it was just sort of a trend that I saw other studios like, oh, they're bringing in this pole star for workshops. So I felt like it was something that you did as a studio. Now I don't necessarily feel that way. I feel like I try to reach out to artists specifically that can help with what the focus is for the studio, something that I feel like my instructors can get something out of and not just, what the students want. So I don't necessarily, we're not like a super acrobatic, crazy tricks, flips studio. So I won't necessarily reach out to that artist. Because, I feel like I want them to give us something that we're already focusing in on. Yeah, it's just super helpful. And then going back to that burnout feeling, just having another instructor with a different mindset bring in their teaching prompts, their class structure, just refreshes us as instructors and just makes it a lot easier to come up with ideas for warm-ups, to come up with ideas for stretches, to come up with ideas for prompts for freestyles. It's super helpful. So, obviously the students are getting something out of it, but I feel like they're more interested in what they can get out of to add to their dance, where the studio can get something more to add to our curriculum and enriching our instructors and stopping that burnout.
Yeah. So when you're booking them, are you most of the time working directly with the artists themselves, or is it like a manager?
So for the most part, it tends to be directly with the artists, and that has been extremely helpful because they are usually really open to catering something specifically for our student population. And it's really nice just to speak directly to them. Sometimes a little bit of starstruckness. Like I said, with Alethea Austin, it's like, hi, I love you. Can you please be my friend and come take and teach workshops and please perform? All the nerves inside of a professionally written email. Right. But it's really nice that the industry is still so fresh and new that for the most part you're working directly with the artists and they're super excited to come and teach. Very few times have people said like no, or even if they say no, it tends to be more due to availability than anything else.
So speaking both about having workshops here as well as producing the shows, how do you market these things?
So for the most part, it's word of mouth.
Okay.
We have a dry erase board at the studio where all the events are posted. We have a private Facebook group for all the students where I post everything. I'll put stuff on Instagram and Facebook, but for the most part, especially lately, it's harder to advertise on those mediums. They're really cracking down on any sort of hint of sexuality. Right. So for the first time ever, when I was trying to market for the last showdown, I used a video for the marketing tool, and they did not accept that because there were things that were too sexually explicit, and it was just clips from last year's showdown. So right now it's mostly word of mouth, email, and just getting the word out to the students. And thankfully, lots of students from other nearby studios follow. So people from Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, St. Pete all travel to the studio to get to that artist or get to the show. We've had people come in all the way from North Carolina, which was super cool. Yeah. But and then for the bigger shows, I do post flyers around downtown just because it's near the high dive, and the high dive itself does its own promotion. So
do you find that there's been a big benefit to offering both the workshops and the shows? Does that bring either new students in or different types of people in?
The shows bring new students for sure. I have so many people that will comment look like that I've never seen in the studio before. Yeah. I post a show and they're like, oh, cool. I get to just spy and be a creeper at the show and then sort of test it out before I actually take a class. So the shows definitely bring new clients in. As far as workshops, I'll usually not get like a brand new baby client in, but that's where people are coming in from all different cities in Florida because they're following that artist. And that's really cool because it sort of like broadens and expands the studio family a lot.
And you mentioned that you have a Facebook group.
Yes.
So what do you use this Facebook group for?
So when I first started the studio, I saw what Cleo the Hurricane was doing, and she has her Cleo the Hurricane group on Facebook, and I loved how it sort of just opened communication up for everybody that follows her tutorials or just really loves her clothing or loves her as an artist. So I started the group mostly as a way for students to feel more comfortable sharing videos of themselves where you can't really share it on that same platform where grandma's watching or where the sister's watching or where the cousin is watching. Depending on, you know, how open that grandma, cousin, or sister are. And then also, for the most part, it's really useful just spouting out information that students need to know. It's like, hey, we have a show coming up. Hey, remember to bring socks to class today. Hey, there's an accident on the street. Like, you know, avoid it on your way to the studio. And then what I really love it for is students will ask questions about what shoes do I wear? What grips do I need? What clothes, where do you guys get your clothes? Like, so
creates a sense of community.
It creates a sense of community.
Outside, I imagine, of the studio.
Exactly. And it's just another way that it takes the pressure off me. So instead of a student emailing me like, hi, where do I get shoes? They can post it on the forum, and then there's just this community of people that will like go ahead and answer everything.
Which adds to that welcoming environment.
Exactly.
It's all full circle.
And everybody just wants to dive in and help you out. It's like, where do I get leg warmers? And then there's always like 50 answers.
That's awesome.
On it, So it helps if I'm not, you know, on it every single time. And answering every single question that I've answered like multiple times before.
I know. I like to answer questions when I know the answers. You know, it helps also build confidence.
Exactly.
You know? I know something that I can share with somebody. I imagine there's a lot of benefits from having those groups. So now we're towards the end of the show. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about stuff that you are very, very good at, aside from running the business and everything else, because you've done such an amazing job. But
awkward turtle. About to come
I know.
out.
I'm so bad about this. I gush over people. So through going through your Instagram and taking your class, freestyle is very important to you. And I really appreciate that. Can you tell me, what do you love about freestyle, and why do you continue to teach it and grow?
I think when I first started taking classes, that was always my favorite part of the class, where I just got to let go and listen to the music. It takes me out of my body. It takes me out of the same rhythm. I love to use freestyle just to warm myself up. So students will see me come in for open practice, and it's like, okay, time for a warm up. And most people will have their mats out. They'll start doing conditioning, where I'm doing like sexy head rolls and rolling around on the ground and just like lubricating those joints and opening up. And it's not just like opening up the body, but just also opening up the mind. For me, freestyle just allows me to express something that I'm really feeling heavily. If something dramatic has happened in my life, or I'm feeling a lot of stress, there's been times where I'll just sneak into the studio at 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday, and it's like, I just heard this song in my car, so I drove here and I got down to my underwear and danced by myself and nobody's looking. It's just really freeing, unlike anything else. And I feel like, or at least for me, I was that kid that used to hang out in my bedroom by myself and put on music and roll around the floor and just like dance, but not, you know, the way you would in a club or in a setting where your friends are watching you. So freestyle and pole allows me to go back to that part of my childhood where nobody's watching. It's fine. Just, you know, dance on your own, and whatever you need to get out, just let it come out of your body.
So you mentioned that music is part of your inspiration.
Absolutely.
Do you have like prompts that you follow or that you go into thinking like, oh, I want to work on this, so I'm going to think intentionally about circles or waves?
Right. I feel like the person that has made me think the most about prompts were really two people. The first one is Carmine,
right?
Because she has all the prompts and they're all fantastic.
Yes.
And every single time I've taken her workshops, I'm like, why have I never thought of dancing this way before? And the other one is one of our instructors here at the studio, Renee. She also has like fantastic prompts for dancing. I feel like when I'm being a really good student and a really good trainer, I will come in with a plan. But for the most part, I kind of just dance to whatever the music is telling me to dance to. And whatever the vibe of the song is will drive the way that I dance. So I can do something that's really happy or do something that's really dramatic or do something that's really sexual. The music is what drives that a lot. I think for the most part, the thing that I listen to the most is musicality. So I allow my body to really react to the musical beats and I go from there, and from there it's like, okay, my hips are really feeling this song, so maybe I should focus more on my hips. Or if anything is feeling like stiff or crunchy, I'll tend to put my focus in on that.
Nice. Do you have any tips for beginners?
So just come in.
Yeah.
Is the first tip.
Yeah. Just do it.
I get really tired of hearing the I'm not strong enough, I'm not flexible enough thing. And I feel like it's happening more now than it used to happen when I first started taking classes. And I think it's people finally starting to see pole as more normalized. But then the pole that they're watching is all these pole stars on Instagram,
right? Or
the other side, which is pole fails. And they're not seeing the student that's in the struggle bus. That's where they would be when they first started. So that first tip is just come. So one of my favorite things to say is, if you're dirty, you take a shower. If you're weak, you take a class.
Right.
So that whole week thing, it's like, just take the class. You're not like too dirty to take a shower. That's why you take the shower. Yeah. You're nasty. Take a shower. You're not too inflexible. You're not strong enough to take the class, so just take it. Other than that, we tend to guide students into taking our intro class. Our intro class has this whole speech about judgment-free zone, welcoming environment, community, about not judging yourself and worrying about what you look like or what other people think, because they're all worrying about that same thing and they don't really care about what you look like. So just be you.
So creating that space,
like right from the get-go once they come in, and from there they're taking their level 1 classes and just building foundational moves. And then as soon as possible, I try to kick them off into the choreo classes, just so they could start to get their bodies moving and not just learning all the conditioning exercises. But just have fun with it and don't take it too seriously. And it's really sad when people will only get into something because they want to be good at it as opposed to just enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like you go kayaking to be the best kayaker in the world. You do it because the scenery is nice and you'll get to move and you get to be outside. So same thing with the pole. Just do it, you know. Stop taking it so seriously.
I remember when I first started that, like, I was really bad about recording myself. I wouldn't record myself, and a lot of it was probably fear.
Of course,
that I was gonna look stupid, because I feel like when you first start doing something, it feels very awkward, especially this. So recording myself was like, I'm just gonna
gross.
This
Why?
This
I
is
don't want to see it.
But what I found, especially during freestyle, if I would record myself, like you were saying, I would find myself breaking these patterns and moving differently. And when I was able to just let go and get into that judgment-free space with myself, I'm able to just go and just let it flow. And it's like a meditative thing. I appreciate that you teach that here. I think it can be very intimidating for people.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you're slightly newer. You're like, well, I don't know what to do.
Exactly.
But teaching it from the beginning, you start to build that vocabulary. And that's what this is. I mean, that's what this is. The bigger your vocabulary, the more you can do.
The more you can do.
So starting that from the beginning, I think is really smart. And you freestyle so well.
Oh, thank you.
Like, I know Instagram, you know, we can curate it, but just like scrolling through your videos, I was like, I could watch this all day.
Oh, thank you.
It's so good. Your lines are just really, really beautiful. Do you have a dance background?
I do not.
You do not?
No.
What?
I don't.
I thought for sure you were going to be like, oh yeah, I was a ballerina for 20 years.
No, I was that lazy kid that didn't want to do anything.
That's so funny.
And even my mom put me in swimming lessons, and I used to fall asleep with my floaties in the pool and just like head barely out of the water and somehow still alive today. My mom would like sit me down anywhere, like concrete steps of the school, and I would just fall asleep. Church pew, fall asleep, car, fall asleep. I think that it was just from watching so many dancers and really appreciating how hard they work and seeing those lines and seeing the toe points and seeing the arm extensions. I would always, like I said, dance like a weirdo inside my bedroom by myself. But I've always been the person that is super, super shy, and I like to work on something until I feel good about it, and then I'll move on. Yeah. So I was born in Venezuela, moved to Miami when I was 6. I went to school, and I wouldn't really like speak for the first year or two, and it was just my way of like, I need to know English enough that I feel comfortable speaking it in front of other people. And that's when I was like 6 or 7. And then it's the same thing with dance. Like, what's on Instagram is the better stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's like,
exactly.
I love Instagram, but I also hate it in the same way. Like and now I'm a little bit more comfortable in my own practice, and like I can appreciate the uniqueness of our community and the diversity. But before I was like able to own my own style, I would look and just compare myself and forget that like this is the best that somebody's putting out. Like they're not going to post a video where they're tripping all over their feet, because that happens
for 4 hours before they made that video.
Exactly. And that is a minute of probably an hour practice. But I forget that, especially being a new dancer. We just, like you were saying, people see, you know, this ultra curated image and they think, oh, this
is what practicing pull is like. This is what I have to get so much better before I could even take the class.
And it's not even about that.
Exactly. And that's like a tip I would give to students, like follow more students than you follow pole stars.
That's really good advice.
Because it's like, if you can see yourself in another student, or you can see the struggle of it, so and it's like, oh, it's normal to be struggling. Of course it is. We're all learning that. And I like to use the analogy of riding a bicycle for the first time. And it's true. Anytime we learn something brand new to our bodies, our brain is making those neurological connections. And until those connections have been made and they're more fluid in our brain, it won't really connect to our bodies. So I have to tell people every time, like, this is your second or third class. Yeah. I've had that student come up to me and say like, hi, this is my third class and I just don't feel like I'm good. I'm like, exactly. Right. It's in what you just told me. It's your third class. Just keep coming back.
It's so funny. Like a lot of the stuff that I learned early on was like, besides learning from an instructor, was like me like picking apart things, and and it took me so long to get those things. Like it took so long, and then when like a student tries it for the first time and they don't get it, I'm like, this took me months of practice. This is your first time. Stop it, Susan. You just stop it now. But that's really true too.
And usually the people that are getting it like right away are those people with a dance background that have already, created a part of that neurological connection in their brain, and now they just have to add an extension or add a knee hook or add this, and then okay, it makes sense.
Yep.
And then there's just people that are the people that tend to be hypermobile, not only deal with laxity in their joints, but they deal with laxity in connecting to their movement. So I'll see a lot of the people that are hypermobile and can easily get into splits and back bends and all kinds of things struggle the most with learning choreography and coordination, because it's harder for them to connect to their body that way. Yeah, it's one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot this year. And anybody that's hypermobile, side note, PSA, work more on conditioning your body than you do stretching it. It doesn't need to be stretched that much because it's already so open. So if anything, you just need to protect your joints more than anything else.
I think I heard something like contortionists that start pole dancing, they have to kind of give up some of that flexibility to be able to build muscles and stuff.
Right. And I feel like yes and no. I mean, there's definitely Bryn Root. I might be mispronouncing her name, but she's definitely has all that contortion there, and she has pull in it. And one of the instructors that I used to have, she's traveling right now in Seattle, and she's going to be in Portland soon, but she's a contortionist, and she used to do yoga, and she does pull, and there you go. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's just a whole lot of training. A whole lot of training.
That's true.
Yeah, I feel like if you're only thinking about contortion and stretching as having like really lengthy muscles, you might be thinking about it in the wrong way. And if we think more about protecting our joints, protecting our spine, and that means strengthening all the muscles around our joints, then it'll lead to us being able to be more open in a safe way. Because there's plenty of people that can roll over and do cartwheels and walkovers, but when you like look at their spine, it's like all being taken by their low spine, and it's just like
scary. That's
just an injury waiting to happen.
Absolutely. So I see lots of pictures of a dog on your Instagram. Who is this dog? And tell me about him.
So there is a new puppy in my life. His name is Oreo, but I call him Rio because he's exciting, like carnival, and all he wants to do is play all the time and all day long. He's a little terrier mix. And even though his name is Oreo, he looks a little bit more like cookies and cream. So it's just like spots of darkness, spots of cookies inside his creamy white coat. So I adopted him from my sister and my nieces, who just really didn't have the time that a puppy needs to dedicate to him, and he was spending a lot of time by himself. And on the other page, I was spending a lot of time by myself, having just moved to a new place, no roommates, it's just me all alone. And I do a lot of the administrative work for the studio at home. So I was spending most of my day by myself. So it was just kind of this like perfect meeting of puppy love. So I'm really happy to have a dog in my life. I haven't had a dog in my life for over 5 years. My parents have the dog that I had when I lived in Miami, and I miss him terribly. Loco, who's I think 13 now.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a little old man, but he's great. But yeah, I love Oreo, and I love that it's forced me to walk him every single morning and walk out of my house and get a little bit more cardio and meet other people. So it's been a fantastic addition to my life instead of just work home.
Yeah, that work from home life. It can be very sad. Very sad.
Yeah, very quickly. Very sad.
Yeah, and having a little pup there to break it up.
Exactly. Just having somebody that wants to see me every day is great.
Yeah. Okay, so my last questions. What is your favorite performance of yourself?
Oh, yeah.
That you've ever done?
So it was I think it was the last summer showcases here. I had just gone through a divorce, dun dun dun, last year, and I was just really at that stage of my life, or at least at that point of the separation, feeling really free and lifted and light, because I had already done the moving out process. I had basically not brought a lot with me. I had gotten a whole new set of clothes. So I felt like I really needed to do a performance that matched that. And I did a striptease to Black Velvet.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah. And it was just like about as sexy as I've ever gotten in the studio. And I had the thigh-high velvet boots and stockings and a thong, only a thong underneath.
Yes.
And I did a whole outfit. Like I had my little cape that I took off. And then from there I had a top. And then the top had a little cage harness thing, and then under that I went down to pasty. So it was the most stripping I've ever done at any one place ever. And the connection to the audience was my favorite part, because I literally saw a student fanning themselves when I was in front of them doing vagina monsters. And it's just like, oh yes, clutch those pearls. So that to me was the best, because I felt really connected to my body and really connected to the audience, and open and vulnerable. But because I was doing it in the space that I did, it was great. There's actually no video of it either.
I won't link to it in the notes then.
Sorry.
I think there's a picture of the boots, though.
There is a picture of the boots and the
I'll
outfit.
Link to that, and you can pretend in your head.
You can pretend in your head. Yeah, that's one of the things that I struggle with, is getting recorded when I perform, and I specifically asked not to be recorded for that performance, especially with how little stripping down too I was getting to, and being the first time. Yeah, and it's not the first time one of my performances hasn't been recorded. And I tend to feel that the ones that haven't been recorded are the best. Yeah. And I don't know if that's true, or it's because I can't go back and pick them apart. Yeah. But it really has been like the one that I felt the most connected to everything that I was doing, to the floor, to the poles, to the people, to my body. Yeah. It was really fun.
And your favorite performance of someone else?
That's like impossible.
I know. So your favorite, this is an impossible question for everybody, but favorite performance currently of someone else?
It's still impossible. Okay, so my thing is that and this sounds cheesy and like, oh, sure, you're, a student owner and you're a teacher, but literally the performance that my student is currently performing is my favorite one. I cry at every single performance that my students do. I see their struggles inside the studio, and then they're up on stage and they have the lights on them, and I feel everything that they felt, and I know if it's a choreographed routine, I usually know the routine in my heart, and I know when things are happening, and I still get excited when that drop comes in, and I still get excited when there's that little twerk that they were practicing. So that's like really impossible. I mean, as far as like, if I had to pick a favorite performance that really inspired me way in the beginning, Alethea Austin has that one video where she's just dancing, and it's really dark, and I'm trying to think of the song.
Some really awesome rock song.
And that just like, I really love that, because it just brings me back to my beginnings of pole and just really loving it so much. And that friend of mine that brought me into the studio for the first time, thank you, Abigail. So yeah, I think that's the one that I can think of right now. Although I can see anything Carmine does at any point, even if it's just 13 seconds long. And I'm like, I know. I must dance now.
Yeah, that's great.
Exactly. But yeah, it's impossible to pick.
I know. It's such a hard question.
Yeah.
Well, I will find that video of Alethea and link to that.
If anything, I will link it to you.
Yes.
Share. Yeah.
And lastly, how can people find you?
So many ways. So happykisspolefitness.com is our website. If you search Happy Kiss Pole Fitness on Instagram and Facebook, you'll find us as well. Phone number is 352-448-1128. If I don't answer, it's not because I don't love you, but I'm either teaching or in a meeting. I do answer every message or text message people give me. And info@happykisspolefitness.com if you want to shoot me an email. I love emails because it's the best way to remind me of things that I haven't responded to yet. Facebook messages, Instagram messages, as soon as that notification is gone, it's just like lost in space and I will forget. So yeah, all the ways to find me.
Well, thank you so much again for letting me come into your space, take a class, and then do this whole thing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was really, really great. And you can find all the show notes and all the things on the Aerial Hours website. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that episode with Johanna as much as I did recording it. If you want to know more, head over to our website at theaerialhour.com and check out the show notes. And if you want to see where we're headed to next, you can follow us at The Aerial Hour on Instagram and Facebook. I think I have talked enough, and we are in a park with lots of noise happening outside, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you for being the best audience ever. I'll see you all next time. Bye.
You're not like too dirty to take a shower. That's why you take the shower. Yeah. You're nasty. Take a shower.